All right. Hello there, Joey Song social media friends. I am so excited today. I have with us, of his many accomplishments, I think the biggest one is he's a Wisconsin boy. So I think we can all take solace in that. Jim Abrahams is with me today. We're going to talk a little bit. There's see, I mean, what more do you need? What more do you need than the
It's a
Wisconsin?
cheese cutting board
The
too.
cheese, that's perfect. And it's been used, obviously, too.
Oh,
So.
absolutely.
So for those of you that might not know Jim by name, you certainly know him by reputation. Jim was part of Kentucky Fried Theater about 4,000 years ago here at the UW, along with the Zucker brothers that went on to great acclaim in both very silly filmmaking, and all of them went on to very serious filmmaking as well. And so Jim also has a tie with epilepsy, and we're going to talk over the next few minutes where we'll tell some really great stories about his career. We're also going to put in some plugs and commercials for a cause that we both believe in desperately as well. So, Jim, thanks for joining me today.
My treat. Thank you.
So let's get right down to it. So again, as I said, you guys are going to have to put deal with the commercials in between the great stories. But I guess the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jim, is you mentioned when we were kind of planning this, that within Kentucky Fried Movie and Naked Gun, there's some Wisconsin jokes in there. And since I've got my Wisconsin jacket hanging behind me and you've got your Wisconsin cheese board, let's talk a little bit about some of those.
Well, I think my favorite Wisconsin connection from the movies that we made was from the movie Airplane. And when we made Airplane, what we did was we bought the rights to a 1957 melodrama called 0 Hour that starred Sterling Hayden and Linda Darnell and Dana Andrews. And it was the story of airplanes, about some guy chases his girlfriend onto the plane, there's food poisoning on the plane, and he has to land the plane. There's actually a line in 0 Hour that says, we have to find someone who not only can fly this plane, but who didn't have fish for dinner.
Oh, no.
We didn't write that. That's Arthur Haley wrote. That's in the original screenplay. So another feature of the 0 Hour movie was the pilot of the airplane was played by Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. Now, for those who don't know or remember, Elroy Hirsch was from Wausau.
Yeah.
And he played football at the University of Wisconsin, later played for the Los Angeles Rams, and wound up being athletic director at Wisconsin.
Yep, for many years.
For a long time. But somewhere evidently between his football career, playing and getting into administration, he was searching around for what to do. So he decided to take this role as a pilot of the airplane in 0 Hour. And as gifted a football player as Elroy was, and as wonderful an athletic director as he turned out to be, he couldn't act to save his soul. And it was pretty obvious. And so David and Jerry Zucker, who you mentioned, and I, who did Airplane together, we thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to actually cast a well-known professional athlete in a role and just call him out in the middle of the movie, which wound up being Kareem.
Right. With his Wisconsin connection as well.
Yes, yeah. He was, because Kareem had played for the Bucks for a few years before he moved back out to LA. And actually we wrote the part originally for Pete Rose, that we filmed Airplane during the summer, and Pete Rose was unavailable. So mercifully, I mean, lots of things happened right in that movie. It wound up being Kareem, and it was really fun. But it was, the origin is Elroy Hirsch.
That's great. That I did not know that, and that's a great piece, especially the line about who didn't have fish. I mean, you would just assume that that's from the slapstick comedy school.
Yeah. Arthur Haley in this drama wrote, you need to find someone who not only can fly this plane, but who didn't have fish for dinner.
That's fantastic. I was assuming when you were going to say there was a Wisconsin connection, it's going to be the scene where he mentions the drinking problem and puts the glass on the side of his head. Because I think all of us, most of the people watching this are probably Wisconsin people, and I think we all understand that.
We all relate to that.
That's right. That's right. So before we go on to more, as I promised everybody that's listening, there's going to be some plugs in here because the reason we're doing this, besides these wonderful stories, is for a cause we like. So Jim offered to help me because, again, for everybody that's watching this, you probably follow Joey's song on social media. And we've got our benefit coming up December 6th at the Barrymore in Madison. And we have lots of Wisconsin connections with that. For most of you that know, Butch Vig is my lifelong pal, and Butch came to fame with Smart Studios. He produced the Nirvana records, Smashing Pumpkins, Sonic Youth, as well as his own band Garbage. He's a 3-time Grammy winner. And Butch is coming into town with his band, and we've got some great special guests. We've got Brian Ray, who's in Paul McCartney's band. You can't get much more rock royalty than that. We've got Miguel Cervantes, who's the lead in Hamilton and Chicago. Lots of great things. So you probably, I'm sure if I'm social media enough adept, probably below us right now, there's a link to the place to buy tickets. We fight epilepsy. We'll talk a little bit later with Jim about why that cause is important to him and me. But I ask you right now, if you're enjoying this conversation, please go buy a couple tickets, come to the show. I guarantee it's a night you're going to remember. And later on, we're going to talk about a little special thing that Jim is donating for our auction and raffle as well. So we'll talk about that as well. So I know we're going to talk about some of the serious movies that you made as well, but this is my interview, so I get to ask the questions that I want to ask you. And there's a person in the Naked Gun movies and in Airplane that can make me laugh just by looking at him. And that's the great Leslie Nielsen. And up until that, correct me if I'm wrong, most of his roles were serious leading man kind of roles.
100%.
I talk about, well, I won't say miscast because he was a great leading man, but the timing that Leslie Nielsen had and the ability, I could go on for hours. Jim, tell us a great, if you got a couple of them, Leslie Nielsen stories.
Well, and you're right, there are many. And I think he was very grateful because he had been pigeonholed because he was so elegant in looking and everything. He had been pigeonholed into these dramatic roles, but deep down inside, he was a clown. And so he was just liberated when we did Airplane, and then getting the Naked Guns and stuff. It was like he was reborn. And I think the signature Leslie thing that comes to mind, and there are a lot, is that he would always carry with him this some sort of device that he'd put in the palm of his hand. And when he'd squeeze it, it would make a fart sound.
Yeah.
And he would do it, and it was always with him. I never saw him when he didn't have it. And that meant if we're shooting, right before somebody says action, he'll go like that. And not only would it make the sound, but he had this ability to kind of move uncomfortably to accompany the sound. And so he would do that all the time on the set. And one time, we were doing some live interview. I think it was in Minneapolis. It was a live television interview. And it was in Minneapolis. And the interviewer, the woman, asked some question, and Leslie squirmed a little bit. And she didn't know she was supposed. It was so awkward for her. It was really, I wish, I'm sure it was never taped, but
yeah, well,
it was really fun. He just didn't take it seriously.
Well, and I remember, and again, you and I both didn't get this gray hair just because of our good looks, but when he would be on the Carson show or something like that and really get a chance to be who he was, there was a deadpan to his style too that was just, it was that counterbalance too, as you said, those elegant leading man looks, and as he grayed, it was even more distinguished looking. And yet, when he was on Carson or Letterman or wherever he would be plugging a movie, if you didn't know him, you couldn't juxtapose those two things because he was just downright silly.
Right. And when you think about it, those movies, Airplane, Naked Guns and stuff, they're really about, at least we always like to think, they're kind of about a self-effacing sense of humor. If you laugh at some of those jokes, you're really laughing. You know what? I took that seriously, and I didn't have to take Don't Call Me Shirley seriously, stuff like that. And so Leslie, and actually Robert Stack and Peter Graves and Lloyd Bridges all had this in Airplane, and then individually had this ability to laugh at themselves. Yeah. That's with here's my body of work. This is what I raised my family on, and now I'm going to pull the rug out from under it. So it has a sort of endearing quality, I think, too, because they weren't, unless he didn't take himself seriously.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned between Peter Graves and all of those actors, again, for our generation, they were nothing but leading men. You know, they were always the lead cop or the romantic interest. And, you know, the Peter Graves scene in the cockpit with Joey and the Turkish prison and the grown man naked. And I mean, it's just that, and we could spend another hour talking about the principles of comedy, but juxtaposing those two things is what makes all that stuff work. And, you know, Robert Stack with his seriousness in the control, it's brilliant. Now, did you have to, so this, I'm sure they probably couldn't wait to be a part of that, given that they all deep down inside wanted to just be silly.
We were, when we got to Paramount, we made the movie at Paramount, and Paramount wisely, because we didn't, David and Jerry and I really had never, we'd only been on a movie set one time, let alone direct a movie together and all that kind of stuff. So they assigned a guy to us, a guy named Howard Koch, who worked at Paramount, but had been president of the Screen Actors Guild and the Directors Guild, and maybe even the Academy. I think he was president of the Academy. So he's a very esteemed, wonderful guy, veteran, who all these folks who we wound up casting in Airplane had worked with and respected and trusted. So he kind of got in touch with Leslie and Peter and Lloyd and said, you can trust these guys. They know what they're doing. And otherwise, I don't think they ever would have
done it.
I don't think so.
If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have had all those great Lloyd Bridges scenes in Seinfeld then later on as well, with the credit money and all that other stuff. So yeah. I think Jerry Seinfeld owes you a bottle of red wine and a steak as well for all of that great stuff. That's just tremendous. So let's talk a little bit about the Charlie Foundation. So we're both here today because in our own way, we're doing what we can to fight epilepsy. Tell everybody about Charlie Foundation, please, Jim.
So, you know,
yeah,
it happened.
Yeah, no. So everybody, Jim and I were talking before this, and it's funny how these things sneak up on you, right? And you guys all, if you're watching this, know my story with Joey Song, and there's these little moments, and sometimes you just need a second to collect yourself because it's really personal and it's really important.
Yeah. So our youngest kid, Charlie, started having epilepsy when he was in 1993, when he was 1 year old. And he kept having more and more seizures, and we kept taking more and more doctors, more and more drugs. He had brain surgery when he was 18 months old. It was pretty awful, and then we kind of gave up. And we were told he was going to continue having seizures and live a life of progressive retardation. And so kind of as a way to figure out how Charlie and the rest of my family were going to make it through that kind of prognosis, I started doing some research. This is before the internet was around.
Yeah.
And so I actually went to a library. You can Google library and see
Heaven
what.
forbid. If you slip in the word microfiche here, Jim, we're going to win some sort of a prize.
So a library is a thing where there are lots of books. And so I went and started looking up epilepsy and the particular diagnosis that Charlie had. And I came across something called a ketogenic diet. And the ketogenic diet was developed in the early 1920s at the Mayo Clinic, and for decades was one of the few treatments they had for kids with difficult to control epilepsy. And it was incredibly successful. About a third of the kids who tried the diet had seizures go away. Another third were significantly improved. And for another third, it didn't work. So we went to our doctor at UCLA and said, what about this ketogenic diet thing? And he said, nah, I don't believe in it. And eventually I called a doctor from Johns Hopkins Hospital who had written the most current study that was published in 1992. And I asked him whether Charlie might be a good candidate for the diet. He said, bring Charlie. We took Charlie to Johns Hopkins. At the time, he was on 4 medicines. He was just younger than 2 years old. And he was having many seizures every day. and we started the diet, and within 2 days the seizure stopped, and within a month he was off all his drugs. And it was a miracle.
It is.
It seemed like, yeah, but then we started to look around and found that there's a world epilepsy population of over 60 million people. Most of those people start having seizures as children. And virtually none of them learn about the diet or how to implement the diet with an experienced nutritionist. And so that became, my life's calling, is to let people know that, maybe a lot of what your kid is going through is unnecessary.
It's interesting. There's a doctor here at UW Hospital, Dr. Elizabeth Felton, who is a proponent of the ketogenic diet. And so if you're kind of within the sound of our voices in the Wisconsin area and epilepsy has affected you and you want to learn more, it's Elizabeth Felton at UW Hospital. And I have heard her speak on the diet, and she's got a lot of fun recipes. She'll show you how you can make pizza and brownies and all the stuff that you wouldn't think you could. And she swears that they taste just as good as
well, they do. And then I'll get off. We have on our website, it's charliefoundation.org. We have a whole tons of recipes that are posted, and you can look at them, and it can be delicious.
So before we get back to the silly, you mentioned Do No Harm with Meryl Streep. Do you want to talk a little bit about that movie?
Yeah. So one thing, once we started publicizing the diet, we started hearing, because the diet had been around since the 1920s, we started hearing from people who had been on the diet at some point during their life and were cured of their epilepsy and went on to live normal lives. And the most dramatic letter we got, again, a letter, remember letters?
Sort of.
Yeah. We got an actual letter from a mom from Marengo, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago. And she told her story about getting her kid, who is having multiple daily seizures and drugs and the same stuff, and how she got him on the diet and how it cured him. So I contacted her and asked her if we could write a screenplay about her experience. And it turns out that Meryl Streep, her older kids went to school with our kids. So we kind of knew her, but sort of like do PTA stuff. She's a completely wonderful woman. Right. I mean, she's a PTA mom. I mean, you'd know if you didn't recognize her, but she's wonderful. And so she saw what Charlie went through, both getting sick and getting better, and she agreed to play the part. And so
that's about the upper echelon of Hollywood when you get Meryl Streep in your movie.
Exactly. And, I always, when I reflect on my own life, and I know we're supposed to be funny, there is nothing that's been more powerful than to write my most passionate feelings and have Meryl Streep say the words.
Again, it's the epitome of it. And my realm is music, and I feel the same way. These artists that come and sing and giving us music, the fact that they're willing to do that talent, which I could never dream of having, and are willing to donate it to help, as anybody that's watched the Joey Son video, The Next Family, it moves you. It really does, that these talented people are willing to do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So charliefoundation.org. If you're interested in the ketogenic diet, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to find a brownie recipe, I promise.
Oh yeah, you will.
Absolutely. All right, now back to the silly. So, you're a fine-looking man, but I'm going to guess people don't come up to you in the street and go, wow, it's Jim Abrahams. But eventually, when you're at cocktail parties or you're out, people figure out who you are. I could spend the next hour giving you all the lines from those great silly movies. But when people, what is it, the yes, I'm serious and don't call me Shirley? What's the line that people feel they need to parrot back to you the most?
I think Don't Call Me Shirley is the most often quoted one. The one that I hear relatively frequently, and is that there's a scene, I'll see if I can, in Airplane where the captain of the plane is talking with the doctor, Peter Graves, talking with Leslie Nielsen, and Leslie says, the doctor, Captain, how soon can we land? And Peter Graves, the pilot, says, I can't tell. And Leslie says, you can tell me, I'm a doctor. And And we were, for some reason that just
Yep.
always sticks. And I think a lot of people remember that.
I do. The other, I'll call it shtick, and I'm sure you're not offended by calling it shtick. The other shtick is the something about taking to the hospital. A hospital, what is it? It's a building, but there's no time for that now. I mean, those are just as in this couple of weeks is leading up to this conversation. I've been telling my friends that you and I were going to have this conversation. Everybody has a line. Everybody, and the thing that we say to the myself and my friends is, Jim and the Zucker brothers made money doing what we do sitting on the porch. They were just smart enough to film it.
Yeah, well, we couldn't find jobs.
You have to feel that way sometimes, right? It's like,
of course, we think about that all the time. The difference between us and all the guys we grew up with and everything is they could find jobs.
we won't tell the UW placement service that, but fair enough. Fair enough. All right, we're going to do one more little plug for epilepsy, and then we're going to finish up. So, before Jim and I hit record on this, we were talking about why epilepsy is different than some of the other things that affect people. And there are, please don't get me wrong, people, there are lots of worthy charities for lots of really serious things. But what people don't understand about epilepsy, and Charlie went through it until the diet worked for him, and my son Joe, his whole life, is that 24/7, that sword of Damocles is hanging over your head when that seizure is going to come, and they don't always stop, even with the emergency meds. I can't tell you the number of times that, we were in the back of an ambulance, it was a normal day, and we were then in the back of an ambulance, and 4 days later in the PICU. So there's something, Jim and I use the phrase heaviness with epilepsy that there might not be with some of the other diseases. And it's misunderstood. And while there are more people with epilepsy than with MS, muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, and multiple sclerosis combined, I don't know if I doubled up on that, but the top other four neurology, more people combined have epilepsy than that, yet funding lags all of those as well. So I know with Joey's Song, and I know with the Charlie Foundation, we've spent our time, as again, if you've watched the Joey Song video, trying to help that next family. Epilepsy is misunderstood. People are afraid of it. And our job is to just try to make it the fight a little bit easier for the next family. Right, Jim?
Yeah. And it's hard to get your mind around what epilepsy can do to your family and to your life, unless you've walked in our shoes. And one thing that we have to remember is that seizures don't schedule themselves. It's not like Tuesday at 3:45, you're going to have a seizure. It can be now, it can be 30 seconds from now, it can be an hour from now. And when the seizure comes, it can, depending on the kind of seizure, it can be devastating. Like there's one kind of seizure called a drop seizure, where it's like just pulling a lamp plug out of the wall. Everything goes out and the kid goes down, and he doesn't brace himself or anything. Because he just blacks out instantly. So there are a number of different seizures, seizure types, seizure disorder, but never do they schedule themselves for you.
Well, and as a matter of fact, while Joey unfortunately had cognitive issues, for those people with epilepsy that are more aware of their surroundings, excitement can actually trigger seizures.
That's
so
correct.
It can often be at the worst possible time because you're excited that you're going to this event or you're going to see these people. So there's an insidiousness to it as well that can, not that there's ever a good time to have it, but sometimes the least opportune times is when it sneaks up on the patient as well. That's why we do this, right, Jim?
That's why we do it.
That's
why we do this.
All right, we're gonna wrap up, folks. But I have
one more thing.
Oh yeah, please.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
You had said in advance if I have a signature University of Wisconsin.
Oh
story.
yes, gosh yes.
So when we were just finishing high school, I went to high school in Milwaukee, and we were just finishing high school and figured out we had to do something after high school. So we were going to go to college. And back in the old days, the University of Wisconsin had to take high school graduates by law.
Oh, they had to? Oh.
Yeah, it was a law that they had to take it. and our $75 a month tuition, or $75 a semester tuition. That was the law.
Yeah.
So a buddy of mine and I decided, well, let's go take a look at Madison. And we went up there and we went to Camp Randall. And we got there a couple of hours, I think, before the game. We didn't know. And we wound up sitting in the end zone next to the card section. And I don't even know if they still have card sections. They don't. So there were like 300 kids, and they would hold up a card like this. And there's a guy on a megaphone in the front of the card section, and he would yell 7, and they'd hold up something. And if you're out in the audience, you could see a Badger or a W or something like that. So they rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and everything. And then toward the end, the guy on the megaphone said to the kids in the card section, now here's the most important thing. I don't care how exciting the game gets. I don't care if we're down by 21 points with 3 minutes to go and we come back and win the game. Do not throw the card. At which point, every one of the kids just threw their cards in the air, and that was the end of the card section. And I've always thought was
things don't change.
Exactly. That was my spiritual connection with the University of Wisconsin.
That's how you knew. All right. So we're going to do, I've got one last question for you, Jim, and then we're going to talk to folks about your special thing you're donating to the event. So again, I know you've done lots of other stuff besides those movies, but I'm an immature man of a certain age, and those 4 movies just resonate with me and always will, right down to naming the last one 33 1/3. But anyway, tell me, that you've told a lot of stories, the best either making of or post-release or something from those 4 extremely silly and for me just absolutely bellwether movies from my youth. Is there one that if you had 1 minute to tell somebody, what would it be?
Well, I think the question that I get most, is after what was it like to work with O.J. Simpson?
Oh gosh, yes.
And my answer is always, well, I've never talked to him since I lent him my cutlery set.
And your gloves and your shoes. Right? I saw there's a scene with you in those Bruno Mali shoes. I've seen that, Jim. I didn't know you were the same size.
Yeah. Here's the glove fit perfectly.
It didn't fit, so you had to have quit.
Yeah.
There's going to be some people watching this that have no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, that's right.
That's okay, too. It's the inside joke for those of us, again, of a certain age. So before we go, and I plug the benefit one more time, Jim is donating a signed poster, an airplane poster signed by himself and the Zucker brothers as well. We're going to have it at the benefit, and it's going to be awesome. It'll be framed nicely and the whole bit. And Beth, who is kind of Jim's right-hand gal in the foundation, is driving it up from Brookfield personally. And so we're going to have it as well. So if you would like this really unique piece of history from Jim and his cohorts, I definitely would like you to come up and do that. So a reminder, December 6th at the Barrymore Theater in Madison, hopefully below this. I don't know if my pointing is doing anything. I will have figured out a way. Can you see it there? In social media to the link, joeysong.org. You can buy tickets. They're $30. They do some good for people. It's going to be a stupendous night. You can visit as well. Jim Abrahams, I couldn't have been more delighted. We could keep going for about another hour until I have questions, and maybe we will after I stop recording. But thank you for your time. Anything you want to say to all your Wisconsin home folks?
I hope everybody finds a way to support Joey's Song. It's a tremendous cause, and it's up to us.
It is up to us. Jim Abrahams, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.